Hello, everyone. Welcome to our broadcast on 3 mistakes that jeopardize your income potential. And today I have a very special host, a dear friend of mine, who also happens to be internationally known speaker, mentor, author of over 14 books and probably more to come. Scott Schilling, also founder of U+1, huge movement in consciousness. So Scott, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Well, it's always fun. You know, we need to talk about just some really good stuff so we can help some people.
Absolutely.
I just do the talking, you do the helping.
Well, you know, you have tremendous experience with your clients. I mean, you've literally by now probably trained what, thousands or tens of thousands of people around the world.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to work with a tremendous number of people, and the anytime you can work with somebody who wants to get out of their own way and do better and serve more people, that's really exciting for me. And so as you and I were talking, you know, one of the things that comes up, whether you are coaching business or life or a variety of different things, money is obviously important. Right up next to oxygen, you know, pretty good.
Yeah, and water. Let's not forget
water. And so, you know, we were talking about how could we help some people, and I think that, you know, you and I have talked enough about this to understand that there's really, I mean, there's a variety of different reasons that people don't have great money consciousness or money relationships, but it kind of comes down to typically just a couple, like maybe three. What are the three? Well, let's start with one. Give me one of the reasons that holds people back from really achieving the money success that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, you work with a lot of clients who want to increase their sales, and presumably they want more money, right?
Right.
So I'm sure that you've noticed that they set out their sales goals or revenue goals. But I think the challenge that I see my clients are struggling with is that even if they think about doubling their sales, they're still thinking too small. And we're kind of conditioned to think small because of that dreadful word called realistic, which is a killer of dreams. But I think it's like if you are a startup entrepreneur and you're only making $10,000 a year or below, thinking about running $1 million business is something that you don't even want to go there, right? Because it's just way out of your comfort, way out of your expertise. Well, the problem is you can only attract to the level that you're what I call vibrate at. So essentially, if your comfort level is at $100,000 a year, and you cannot fathom or position yourself anywhere above that, then you have no resonance with that dream. And let's face it, if we don't dream, we don't know where we're going, we don't have a vision, we don't have focus, so we simply get stuck at that lower level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. We actually very fortunate. I have some business partners who are out in my behalf working on a deal out in California as we speak. And literally, it's funny because people say, well, what could that be worth? Let's put it, it's in at least the 2 comma club, and it might make the more than that. And I like the 2 comma club. I like the idea that, you know, it could be worth 7 or 8 digits, and people say, is that really possible? It is. Now, does it happen easily? No. Does it? But the point is, if you can't see it, you'll certainly never achieve it. So I agree. I think thinking and acting too small. I think thinking too small creates the acting too small. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, one of the easy exercises I always suggest to my clients to stretch that comfort zone is imagine that you're running business much bigger than you are right now. So let's say right now you only have a virtual assistant and you outsource maybe part-time an IT person, maybe somebody for your social media. Go ahead, sit down one day and write down the business plan for $500,000 revenue. What does it mean to you? How many people are you employing right now? Do you have salaried employees? What are their job descriptions? What needs to be outsourced that wasn't outsourced before? Like maybe you could run a free email campaign provider like MailChimp, but at $500,000, you probably have more subscribers. You have to automate your program or your campaigns, so your expenses are bigger, right? But you also have to automate some of these functions. So if you can literally place yourself in that business that is maybe 5 times bigger than you are right now, and have a clear vision of what it takes to run it, that means you've already jumped to that level. Now it's just a matter of appropriate actions and appropriate tasks that you would put in place to be at that level. It's almost like a law of attraction. If you're already here, then the whole reality collapses to create that outcome for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's really exciting. And I've had people say, but and it's funny, my partner said to me yesterday, he said, it took us a year to get to where you've gotten in 6 or 7 months. And what's interesting about that statement is I've got people saying, well, you haven't accomplished anything. But from their to this point, right? Because there's a lot of churn going on. There's a lot of activity, but I see it. I see it very clearly. Of course, I'd love to have it happen faster, but they said, oh my God, compared to us,
yeah,
you're crushing it. But isn't it interesting how your outside influences, one person's you're crushing it is another person's you're not, right?
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, and that's a good segue actually, we are influenced by other people's concepts of money, what can or cannot be achieved. I mean, let's face it, when we say, is it realistic or not, what we're actually communicating is somebody else's value, somebody else's expectation. Mm-hmm. And what we're saying, what I believe I can accomplish, does not matter, because by other people's definitions, it should take faster or longer. But essentially what you communicated to me is that with your project, you went forward and you had no resistance to what's possible for you. So it was manifesting much faster. And the resistance, unfortunately, a lot of time comes because we don't know that we've put this hidden money ceiling on how much we can earn. And if we're coming too dangerously close to it, guess what happens then?
Yeah, that's interesting that you talk about the money ceiling being the second, major thing that people bump up against. Way early in not way early in my career, but fairly early in my career.
Oh, you're a spring chicken, Scott.
I know. Well, it's hard to believe I'm 29. But the
29 plus. 29
yeah. What was funny is that I was brought into a company because the owner of the company would take it to 15 million. And as soon as he hit 15 million with the business, he would sabotage it back down to 10.
Yeah.
And then he would take it back to 15. And then he'd sabotage it down to 10. And he had done this, he was on about the third or fourth iteration of that when he called me in, and we busted through that because we had taken something from nothing to 15 million in about 3 years. And he had been doing this for 20 to 25 years. And he said, well, how did you do that? We just said, hey, we felt like we could, right? So you've got to be realistic. I understand that.
Oh, no, not that word.
Well, I only say that for other people, not necessarily for me. Well, but again, I think that there isn't anything, we're looking at a project right now. In fact, I got a call here after our live that very similarly, amazing products, amazing people, amazing this, amazing that, just not kind of kicking it. Well, as soon as I was called into it with some other friends, we kind of created a team to go in and try to do something. All of a sudden you see what can be done that has yet to be done. And so again, sometimes people sit there and say, well, but it hasn't been done yet. Okay. So it hasn't been done.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that it can, but
right.
To clarify that money ceiling point, and I'm so glad that you brought up this example, because it actually happens very often.
Yeah.
I had a client that had a money ceiling at $1 million and kept jeopardizing that. So I always tell my clients, you don't know you have a money ceiling until you hit it, because how would you know? It's a glass ceiling, it's see-through, you think it's not there. But how many people who have not reached $1 million income are aware of every limiting belief they have around $1 million? But the truth is, our brains are inundated with these crazy sayings like money doesn't grow on trees, right? Well, what's your favorite, Scott?
It grows on bushes, not trees.
Well, why doesn't it float on a river? I always wondered, what's the thing with the trees? But then, it takes money to make money, or if I am rich, the either IRS will take it away from me, or other people will want my money. And what people don't realize is that they put all that in their head without really going into it and figuring out, is this really true? Is it empowering me in trying to make the revenue or income that I want, or is it disempowering me?
Yeah, I had not long ago was talking to a client, and they said, "Oh, I hope this doesn't work too much because I'll have to pay so many taxes." And I went, "Well, first of all, if you have the revenue, get a really good accountant who minimizes. Pay your lowest. Our obligation is to pay the lowest obligated amount.
Well, whatever it is, the least of what we are
right, but." But if you're paying a lot of taxes, that means you're making a lot of money.
Exactly. Isn't that good?
And so I said, the good news is if you're making a lot of money, you can find a really good expert who understands the tax law. And don't be a hater. Don't hate the player, hate the system. If you don't want to pay taxes, learn the system. That's the part that always gets me. That's when you start to really understand. People sit there and say, well, gosh, I can't believe I paid. As soon as they kind of give you an effective tax rate, you got a pretty good idea that their financial consciousness is not what it could be.
Exactly. And here's the reason why we're struggling with all of this. At the end of the day is what I call these hidden emotional and mental attachments to money. And it started way in the past, a lot of times in your childhood. And we've got a visitor on this Facebook.
Yeah. Willie's excited to play.
He's like, now we are really talking about the core. Thank you for emphasizing. Maybe we can mute you for a moment. But essentially what happens a lot of times is, if you had parents, well, let's face it, we all did, right? They talked usually about money around you, and that information gets downloaded into our mindset. Unfortunately, as a child, we interpret that information at a very limited consciousness that we have. So to make it easier, if your mommy and daddy struggled with money, that's all you know. You are encoded with the consciousness of struggle. And in a return, that kind of starts replaying itself down the line. By the way, I have a lot of feedback coming, Scott. Did you switch me to a different?
Nope, I haven't
No?
done anything.
Can you hear me well?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, awesome. So that's the blocks that are running inside of us, unfortunately, are so deeply rooted that they are unconscious to us, and we end up replaying these sabotaging beliefs over and over again. For example, if your mother, not necessarily your Scott, I'm talking as an example,
Right.
if your mother kept telling her husband, you can lose the job anytime, you can lose the job anytime. Essentially, there is this whole notion disaster can strike any moment. You feel insecure. And then you go into the space, whether it's a workplace or whether you work with your potential customers, and you have disaster written all over your face, your energy, your emotions, and you end up actually creating those circumstances. You start sabotaging that income. So
there's no doubt about that fact. I mean, it is. It was funny. I was sharing with somebody yesterday that my dad worked for the same company for 46 years. It's just back in those days, that's what you did. We never were without anything, but we never had the best. But there's definitely different consciousness. It's funny. My uncles all drove. One drove a 1957 T-Bird, great car.
yeah, it's probably expensive, right?
Yeah, many of them drove Cadillacs. But I'll never forget my mom used to say, "Oh, they're all hoity-toity because they drive Cadillacs." Well, what's funny is I've had 5 Cadillacs in a row now. I love Cadillacs, right? But back in the day, that was, it was, we're going to have a Chevy, or we're going to have something else. And so it is amazing how, when you do think back of it, if somebody said, well, the potential money block comes from an experience in the past, I think a lot of people kind of fight that a little bit. But if they were just to open up and say, is it possible? Is it possible that I heard something? And our recall is only what our recall is, And I know that you and I have worked together, and we've addressed some of those things. And all of a sudden, when you start to clear some of those blocks, the other thing that happens is your recall actually gets better, and you start to remember more things. And all of a sudden you go, well, let's process that and get rid of it. We don't need those. We don't need those blocks, whether they be emotional or mental or conditioning or whatever.
And the unfortunate part is they're not so easy to let go of, because one, we are a lot of times unaware of them. Number two, there's a strong emotional investment,
right,
and attachment to that situation. So, a lot of times clients will tell me, well, why would I be attached to a negative situation? Let's say you were 7 years old, your dad lost his job, you end up as a family filing bankruptcy, lived in various houses of your uncles. Well, the emotional attachment is almost the way we try to protect our psyche, because the psyche says, don't let this happen to you again. So avoid making money because you could lose that money. Now my dog was getting crazy. Must be lots of energy, Scott, when you and I get together.
That's right.
But so what ends up happening is that it's a protective mechanism that wants to avoid future potential pain by not letting you go there. But essentially what you're saying is, don't make money because it will hurt you. But how many of us are happy when we're not making all the money that we want and deserve? So cleaning up, so to speak, the house, your psyche, your emotional
Right.
Strata of all these negative experiences opens you up completely. You can go after tripling or quadrupling your income because you no longer try to squash yourself trying to prevent the potential pain.
Well, so I'm just seeing that we could sit and talk about this for a long, long time. So what can be done about this? I know you got a workshop coming up. I know there are opportunities for people to identify this stuff. Growth equals awareness plus inspired action. I mean, the only way you're going to grow is you first have to be aware that there's something to modify, to grow into, and then you have to take the inspired action for it. So now, hopefully, y'all have a little bit more awareness that there's a possibility. The inspired action is really this workshop coming up, right?
Mm-hmm. So thanks for asking about it. I do. We have a Triple Your Money Mindset workshop on February 16th. And that's a 5-hour workshop with very limited attendance. It's only limited to 12 people for each workshop to make sure that I have full attention on each person in the audience. And we are going to examine your relationship with money. But most importantly, we will release these emotional negative experiences that unconsciously are sabotaging your ability to really expand and go after that big dream financially. So I'd like to invite all of you to visit dagmarfleming.com/money. And there is a special coupon created for this broadcast called Triple. That allows you to save $40 of regular pass. So dagmarfleming.com/money, promo code Triple, and that's on February 16th.
Sounds like an awesome event. I know I've been to other ones. They are awesome. So how about one last word of encouragement for everybody here?
Well, the encouragement that I would say to everyone is you can make all the money you want. There is no some hidden force in the universe that is blocking you or stopping you from attracting it. You are the magnet, you're the catalyst to open yourself up and step into that financial security. We just have to clean the house. Swipe off bucks. So
makes sense. We do it in other areas. We should do it in our money consciousness as well.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being with me. I love chatting with you. So I'm glad that you kept us on time because I probably would spend another hour and look forward to the opportunity to talk more.
Sounds great. I look forward to it.
And yes, and before we go, just tell us a little bit, just give me a 1-minute plug-in for U+1 because that is an incredible movement that you're.
What we really wanted to do is we realized that we wanted to. Everybody has. If you're a speaker or a trainer or a coach, we tend to have these. We want to serve the millions or the billions of people, and very rarely do we sit there and say we want to serve just one. And quite frankly, we don't want to just serve one, but we could serve a lot of ones. And so we created U+1 really as the how can we be your +1? How can we serve one person at a time to get them better? And similarly, if we now train 1,000 people to serve one at a time, now we're serving 2,000 people at a time. So it's just it's a different concept of, just top of mind awareness that we can all be somebody's +1. How can we help?
And thank you for being my +1 today.
My pleasure.
All right. Till we meet again. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.